Aaron Duncan here, back again with another Panthers video brought to you by Unnecessary Bluntness Sports Talk. And I start off every video by saying, what up, dude? Here on Unnecessary Bluntness, I do recap and analysis of the NFL, but I show a little extra love to the Carolina Panthers. So if you want to stay on top with all the stuff that's going on this offseason, because you know it's a lot going on, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon also, because I go live every Tuesday at 7:30. So you need to make sure you have the notifications on. That way you know when I go live. That way you can show up. I have open phone line so you can call in. We can talk about stuff. And I got a bunch of other updates that come. So you make sure you hit the bell icon. That way you get a notification. And give the video a thumbs up because it really helps my video out in the algorithm. But hey, real quick, down below in the comments, let me know what you would give Rhule and Fitterer on their first draft together. What grade would you give them? And make sure you watch to the end to make sure you see what grade I give them overall. But let me know down below in the comments how you feel. With all that out of the way, today we're going to talk about the draft class that just joined the team, because we had a eventful draft weekend, to say the least. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details. I'm just going to talk more philosophical about our draft class, because there's so many players I couldn't possibly take the time to go through every one. And of course, I'll have more videos about the depth chart, lineups and stuff later, and how these rookies fit in. But today we're just going to talk philosophically about how the Panthers did this weekend in the draft. And I think the biggest thing that sticks out to most fans is that they're putting all their eggs in a basket for Sam Darnold, and they wanted to get a ton of more players. So the Panthers came into draft weekend with 6 draft picks and 2 comp picks. They ended up drafting 11 players with 5 total trades, guys. 5 total trades. And the biggest thing you see is that they got some players that are not just depth pieces, but they got some guys that are going to compete and push the starters and the vets that we do have to higher levels. We have the youngest roster in the NFL now after this big draft and all these players we brought in. And you can see they really wanted to make a note of pretty much getting rid of everybody that Marty Hurney had. Now, pretty much the only person left from the 2015 Super Bowl roster is Shaq. J.J. Jansen looks like he's going to be all out of here as we drafted a long snapper. So it looks like they're really trying to really flip this roster completely. And the way that they did it is they really just took their chances when they could. Of course, I was a little bit disappointed we did not draft Justin Fields at number 8. But Jaycee Horn is a quality player. I have no problem with the player. I just had an issue with the pick. I'm not really high on Sam Darnold, but it seems like the coaching staff is. And they did a ton to make sure he had success. So at this point, it's just on him. And I think that's really what they wanted to do. They wanted to put everything in front of him. That way he can succeed. That way, if he fails, it's not totally their fault. It's partially his, because they went and addressed the offensive line. They've loaded this offense with more weapons. They added depth at different positions. Just look at what they did in the second round with Terrace Marshall, a big-time wide receiver out of LSU, who is easily going to be an impact player in his first season. I think he's going to push for that number 3 spot with David Moore. He can play in the slot. He can play in the outside. He's one of the bigger receivers we have on this offense now. And he's going to be somebody that could make an impact early on because of the red zone and how we struggled last year. Yes, we picked up Dan Arnold in free agency, a big tight end that's going to help us in the red zone. But I think Terrace Marshall's biggest impact is going to be that size that he has and the ball skills that he has. Sometimes he does lose concentration and stuff like that. But I think him being back with Joe Brady could be pretty big, you know what I'm saying? So going with Jaycee Horn up top to get the defense, to get a tall, rangy corner with that athleticism, and then coming back and addressing your offense and going pretty offense heavy the whole draft, says a lot about what they want to do for Sam Darnold. My only issue is that they didn't draft the rest of the offensive line until the 3rd round with Brady Christensen. Now, Brady Christensen is a left tackle, and nobody knows if he's going to be the guaranteed starter, because sometimes he has pretty short arms and he can let rushers getting to his chest when he's trying to block. You want to be able to keep that arm length out there when you're an offensive tackle. That way you don't let them bull rush you and stuff like this. He has good feet and athleticism, so maybe that'll bring him along. He just needs to get a little bit stronger when it comes to the push and a little bit heavier. So he may not be a day 1 starter, but he could round out and end up being a starter later on. I think a lot of fans have an issue with them settling on Cam Irving, the free agent acquisition, being the starter and not getting a left tackle to the 3rd round. But you got to be happy that they got some competition. They got some depth and some young depth to go ahead and push that position and make all these linemen do their best, because depth is the reason. We had a lot of injuries last year on the offensive line, so having depth is super key, because that's why we ended up with Trent Scott, because Okung got hurt, Daly got hurt, Greg Little got hurt. So we really had a lot of moving parts, and we needed to address depth, and they definitely did that. Now, another thing they did is added another element to some of these positions that we didn't have before. You saw they added the size and the height and athleticism with Jaycee Horn, and they added some size and athleticism with Terrace Marshall in a second. But Tony Trimble out of Notre Dame is an interesting player because he's more of an H-back / fullback with some untapped potential at tight end. Now, do I think he's going to super excel at tight end? No. I think he's just a replacement for Chris Manhurst. They say they can be able to get more out of him in the receiving game. I'm not going to hold my breath on that, but nevertheless, they allow them to put some versatility on this field and save some roster spots because there's going to be a lot of competition. So the guys that can do more than one thing, like Trimble, is going to really have an impact and really going to have a spot on this roster because you can line them up at fullback every so often. Like I said, with Manhurst, keep him in for pass pro help if we need to. But they say that he has the athleticism to pretty much do some things at tight end that we haven't really seen in the tight end position since we've had this new coaching staff because it's really untapped. Obviously, him pairing with Dan Arnold, the starter, will be interesting to see. But Trimble brings a different element because we don't have an H-back in this offense, but he's a guy that can come and do multiple things. But coming back in the following round that I like is Chuba Hubbard, the running back out of Oklahoma State. Now, Chuba wasn't very productive in his last year at Oklahoma State, but the year before that, he had over 2,000 yards, man. This guy is a very productive back, and he went through some injuries this last year in college, but to get him as a backup who has the speed to be a home run hitter, he brings a different element. Like I said, they're bringing different elements to this offense that we didn't have last year. We don't have too many home run hitters. Yeah, Bonifant is effective, and some of the younger guys like Smith and Cannon have some things, but Chuba has been proven in college level that he is a home run hitter, and he's a guy, if he can show that he can catch the ball, he could be a great backup for Christian McCaffrey to really take some slack off of Christian McCaffrey because we don't want to burn him out. Christian McCaffrey is coming off this injury, so being able to have a young back to come in and take the load off will be great. I know we've seen some young backs come into the NFL and be very effective, so we'll see if Chuba, with opportunities, can be one of them type of guys. But one of my favorite picks, obviously, later on in the draft, because you know I'm a little aficionado of the Gamecocks, was Shi Smith. Shi Smith, he's a bona fide true slot receiver. He's a guy that's going to be able to push for some competition for real. Of course, we got Terrace Marshall and David Moore, but do not be surprised to see Shi Smith in there. He has a ton of speed, and he's going to be some of that speed that we get to make up for Curtis Samuel leaving because David Moore and Terrace Marshall aren't burners. But Shi Smith is another speed guy, so he gives us another different element on the inside as a pure slot receiver, and you love to see guys like that getting in the late round. So we'll see. It's going to be a lot of competition, like I said, as wide receiver position because we have some vets, obviously Robbie and DJ at the top, but between some of the old guys like Kirkwood and Zylstra, they may be on the outside looking in if they don't step their game up because we got some young guns in here that's going to be really about their business. What's really interesting is the pickups of Deontay Brown and David Moore. David Moore actually was an undrafted free agent out of Grambling. They got to see him at the Senior Bowl. And Deontay Brown, the biggest guy you've ever seen, the guy from Alabama that can block anything. He never gave up a sack at Alabama. 912 pass snaps. Deontay Brown didn't give up anything. Now, he will be pushing to probably either be a starter this year or either next year at the worst. But these two massive human beings that are athletic and that can move, this tells you what they want to do. They want to really put that running game together and give some good protection for Sam Darnold. When you have guys that big that can just lean on guys, you know what I'm saying, it gives Christian McCaffrey a chance to get to the line of scrimmage without being touched. That way he can get to the second level and make moves, especially when you have guys like him and Chuba Hubbard that can hit the home run. Having them clean and getting to the second level clean is everything because that can be a difference between a big play or a tackle for a loss. So I really love what they did with these two massive human beings that really shows the beef and the toughness that we have. Now, interior-wise, I think we'll be fine. And I think David Moore can actually play center down the line if Matt Paradise doesn't come back at the next year or something happens there regardless. But we're able to go cheaper and younger if we give him some reps at center. So we'll see. But Deontay Brown is a big guard, guys. For us to get him that late in the draft is beautiful. And you really got to give credit to Scott Fitterer for making these moves to get the interior offensive line. You can find interior offensive linemen late in the draft. Like I always tell you guys, Andrew Norwell, the all-pro that used to play for us before we couldn't afford him, was an undrafted free agent, but he developed into an all-pro. So much so we couldn't afford him, like I said. So you could find some gems and really develop them. And I think David Moore and Deontay Brown are definitely going to be guys like that now. Will Brady Christensen work out? We'll see. Rome wasn't built overnight. We weren't going to be able to address everything that we wanted in this draft. Like I said, I didn't think we had any blaring needs coming into this draft. Everything was going to be adding more depth, competition, or upgrades. And we definitely upgraded with Jaycee Horn. We definitely added some competition with Terrace Marshall. Definitely added some competition with Chuba Hubbard. Deontay Brown, David Moore at line. Definitely added some competition. And we upgraded that tight end a little bit with Tony Tremble, adding a little bit of versatility at different positions. So adding some things that we didn't have. That's what you want to see. You want to see different elements and dimensions being added. But you can see size and speed is the big factor for this team because all these guys are over 6 feet. All these guys are huge. They can move. They have athleticism. They're young guns. Like I said, we have the youngest roster in the NFL now. So you're going to see. It's not going to be an overnight process. So hold your breath. Don't hold your breath for a Super Bowl this year. But maybe in a year or 2 or 3, if all things work out with Sam Darnold, we'll see. We'll be pushing for an opportunity to either be competing for a division title, playoffs, maybe even a championship. Who knows, man? But the biggest thing I will say about this that I want to give them a grade on is I'll give them a B+. I would have liked to see them address the offensive tackle position a little bit earlier, but I can't be mad at any of the players that we have. Everybody has a chance to be decent. I mean, Brady Christensen, I think if we can get 3 to 4 starters out of this class, that'd be good. Because Scott Fitterer, think about it. He was part of the Seattle movement, and they had one draft. There was one draft that really turned everything around where they revolutionized the program when they picked up Bobby Wagner, Russell Wilson, and guys like that. And that was just a draft class that really changed it. Will this be the draft class that changes everything around? We'll see. But you definitely see the imprint from Seattle that they're bringing in a lot of competition at different positions, drafting as many players as possible to see if you can get anybody good, because the more players you draft, the better chance you have of getting good players. So that's the thing I'm paying attention to. And the one other thing that I noticed is the amount of Senior Bowl prospects that we ended up drafting. We ended up drafting 5 guys that were at the Senior Bowl. And that says a lot because that was the leg up that we had, especially with the limited offseason because of COVID. Having that Senior Bowl was a great chance for us to evaluate talent, and they took full advantage, and they took some guys that they liked. So I love to see them take advantage of the opportunities that they had there. But nevertheless, you guys let me know, who do you think was probably the surprise pick that you liked and we think will be the breakout guy in this class? And what would you give the draft class grade for everything overall with Scott Fitterer? Let me know down below in the comments. But without further ado, I'm Aaron Duncan signing off. I'll see you next time. Peace.